YouTube, and then we're going to get started. There goes Mr. Kendall Marshall, who I think is going to help us out with some things. Okay, I got you. You good. So yeah. Okay, I'm trying to make sure. Okay, there we go. All right, so we are live now. So good afternoon, everybody. It has been a while since we've seen everybody because most of us were impacted by the storm, the Texas 2021 Snowmageddon, and all that good stuff. And so thank God that we are here. We're still surviving, and people are now getting vaccines for those who choose to. So I pray that everybody is still hanging in there and just surviving and, trying to make the best of this and get on the other side of this. So it's always a pleasure and great to see you all. Thank you all for tuning in. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, and all month everybody has been celebrating International Women's History Month. And so we want to continue on with that theme with the rest of the world in celebrating women, but we are going to specifically focus on African-American women. So I'm really super duper excited about our guest for this evening, Pastor Ayers. That's our social justice pastor, my friend, my homegirl, my lunch buddy, all that good stuff. We've been riding together a long time, and I love her to pieces. And then after Pastor Ayers shares with us, then we're going to have our very own Sister Jackie. Sister Jackie actually is the social justice minister at Westside. And so I'm glad that you two get to be in the same space. Hopefully you all can connect as well. She's doing social justice ministry in the Denton area and at Westside in the Louisville area and beyond. And so we're grateful for Sister Jackie's support and participation of our branch as well. So, and then we'll have some brief announcements, y'all, and we're going to get out of here. And so I hope, I know, like I said, there were a couple of people that we're having issues seeing the newsletter for some reason, and I'm not sure why, but we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. Okay, and Danielle, you have your PowerPoint ready? Okay, yes. Awesome. Okay, just a second. I knew I was doing something wrong. Okay, let's try this again. Just like we got an awesome communications team, one day we're gonna have an awesome IT team, so I can sit back in Cadillac and not be so nervous during these meetings. Okay, can you all see my screen? Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Okay, Reverend Danielle Ayers is a justice seeker, an author, a preacher, and a teacher. Currently, she serves as pastor of justice at Friendship West Baptist Church in Dallas. Reverend Ayers provides leadership to the following impact areas: economic justice, food justice, gender justice, environmental justice, and legal clinic racial reconciliation, voter engagement, and immigration. She also leads the church's public policy and justice initiatives through education, mobilization, and organization. As a consultant, she facilitates sessions at churches across the country, offering effective tools to decolonize mission trips and construct justice ministries. Pastor Ayers serves as the co-convener of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference Incorporated and as a delegate to the Transatlantic Roundtable on Religion and Race. She serves on President Jimmy Carter's New Baptist Covenant Board of Directors and the Board of Directors of the Faith Cooperative Federal Credit Union. Reverend Ayers holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration in Marketing and Economics from the University of Memphis and a Master of Divinity from Bright Divinity School at TCU. Reverend Ayers is also the co-author of To Serve This Present Age, Social Justice Ministries in the Black Church. And she is a proud pink and green member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So with no further ado, I present to you Pastor Danielle Ayers. And if you all have not, please make sure you check out her book. Her book is awesome. So make sure you get a copy of that book and share it with your other justice co-laborers.
Well, thank you very much, Crystal, my friend, and my sister and co-laborer in the faith. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So much is going on this past year. We have so much going on in the midst of a global pandemic. You know, we're still dealing with the global pandemic, right? Of all the different various injustices that go on throughout not only Dallas, but throughout this nation and throughout the world. So I want to commend you and your team on starting this NAACP chapter. That is so amazing. I think that's always so exciting to see so many people who find their journey, right, in doing this work for justice. Is so important, it's so critical, and it's so much work. And it's in the room, I tell people, for everybody, right? So we need more than 1 or 2 people. We need a number of people engaged in this work. So thank you so much for the invitation and for really centering, right, in this moment, the voices and lived experiences of Black women. I really appreciate that as well. And so I'm often reminded by many of my mentors that when we think about International Women's History Month, that we should be very mindful to remember that we are part of a larger diaspora, right? So then instead of highlighting a woman in America, I thought it's fitting that we highlight President Samia Suluhu Hassan, who is the newly elected president of the Republic of Tanzania, the first woman to be the president there. So she's making history even in this moment. So I thought it'd be good to kind of lift her up. She has an enormous task in front of her at the sudden death of President John Pombe Magufuli. He died suddenly, and then she was thrusted into this position. So we certainly lift her up as she has to now negotiate and navigate how they manage COVID-19, and particularly the vaccines, and what does that mean for their survival and their flourishing in the country of Tanzania. So I thought it'd be fitting to lift her up during International Women's History Month. We celebrate all women, particularly Black women in the diaspora. So I wanted to do that. Now, what I wanted to talk about in light of this being the NAACP chapter, in light of it being Women's History Month, and you wanted me to spotlight Black women, for me at least, when we think about doing this type of justice work, and you're NAACP, and certainly you know your founders, how the NAACP got started. And one of those women who's behind me here is Ida B. Wells, right? And she was there in 1909. And I think she's a very not well talked about heroine of ours who did so much, not just for women, but she did so much for community and for this world and for this nation. So I always want to remind us that when we think about NAACP, let's think about her and the work that she did to really found the organization to which you all have been bequeathed this amazing legacy. So one of the things I want to talk about as relates to Black women who are in this struggle for justice, peace, love, and liberation, is that oftentimes we find ourselves doing this work under divine sanctuary. For a lot of us, some of us who may be in church, we do this work outside of the church, right? That we don't have that safety net of being doing that work from the lens of the building. We have to step out and do this work outside of the church. And we find ourselves finding wisdom, strength, and courage to do this work under a divine sanctuary, that we have this covering, that we do this without fear, or fear does not hinder us. And we go forth and speak truth to power. We get on the front lines and we lift up those issues that we know we have to deal with to bring justice, whether that's criminal justice, whether that's police brutality, whether that's advocating for women and children to have access to food, where they're not food insecure. So the list goes on and on. So I look at these two women, one, Fanny Lou Hamer, right? I think it's so important to lift up the ways in which she identified as a woman of deep faith, But as you know, she is most notably known for her work around what we now know as Freedom Summer. But more than that, she also did work around environmental justice and food justice. Beyond voting rights, she owned land, acquired land. She helped people grow their own food. She was able to offer up livestock for people to feed themselves. And she very much in her own way, in this book, I like that Karen Crozier, a colleague of mine, wrote this book about Fanny Lou Hamer. And it's called Fanny Lou Hamer's Revolutionary Practical Theology. And I love it because Fanny Lou Hamer didn't go through like formal academy. She didn't have a degree from seminary, but she was very succinct in understanding, one, this concept of justice and peace. She understood God's kingdom and who God was and who Jesus was to her, and also the relationship between land and labor. So she was very astute in how she understood how God operated outside of the walls of a church, and that God certainly had her in the palm of his hands as she went out and literally laid her body on the line, right, for justice, peace, love, and liberation. And so I think it's so befitting to remember her in this moment, because we have modern day, what I would say, right, those who walk in that same legacy, that the work that we find ourselves doing is not new work, right, that we should see this as a continuum. As Angela Davis would say, that freedom is a constant struggle. And I think we should look at this as a way in how do we take the work of a Fanny Lou Hamer and we advance that work even more so with the more tools and technology and access to resources that we have. And so I think she is a classic example of how she loved the church, she loved God, but she understood that the work she was called to do was calling her outside, to be outside of that realm of the church where necessarily women's leadership was not welcome or wanted. But she did not shrink from that. She said, no problem, I'll go join SNCC, right? And I love the fact that she joined SNCC because it shows the importance of, in this day and age, when we do the work that we're called to do in terms of justice, that we make sure that it's intergenerational, right? That it's transgenerational, because she's in her 40s, joining the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee with so many young people, and they're learning from one another. And I think it's so important to lift that up and say that at 44, she understood, I don't know it all, but SNCC, for her, she said, gave her what she needed to really truly understand her identity and her work of justice, freedom, love, and liberation. That's where she felt that came from. And she made another powerful statement. She said the day she was kicked off the plantation for going down to register to vote, she said that day, her life for Christ began on that day. So she understood this idea when we say thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, that this is not a place, but it is a way of being. It is God's way of bringing righteousness and justice here where we are right now. So I just love her work. I love her witness, and that she will never die. Her spirit will never die because it lives on today in many of us who do this work. And so then I want to lift up, obviously, Stacey Abrams, among many Black women, right, who turned Georgia. But I lift up Stacey because I think her book, Lead from the Outside, is so critical, not just for women. I think it's critical for anyone who sees themselves as the other. Anyone who sees themselves not always pulled into the mainstream, maybe someone who feels their voice is never really heard, respected, or lifted up. She really does a good job of giving practical tools on how you can lean into your best self, how you can take what you already have, because I believe we all are already endowed with everything that we need to do what we feel a sense of what we want to do in this world, right? And I think her book does a great job at really pulling those of us on the margins, those who are otherwise, who are not part of the mainstream, giving us those tools that we can use to really make a change. And she is a classic example. And I love the way her book really lifts up her failures, right? And how she took those, turned those into strength and courage, and she gained wisdom in her failures as well as in her triumphs. And I think it was so, the book is just amazing, right? And I think it's another continuum of the ways in which Fanny Lou Hamer operated outside the realm of the church, the building, but she never left God, never left the church, and never left Christ. She just understood it to see Christ-like people out in community who do, right, who is doing the work that Jesus did himself out in community. And so I think Stacey's book does just that. And I love it because when I met her last year at the Proctor Conference, one of the things that she was clear about was growing up is what she was taught in terms of what does it mean to give back? What does it mean to really be a part of something larger than yourself? And having gone on to Spelman and then running for the governance race and having that race really stolen from her, in her own words, she said she went through the grief state, the different stages of grief. And she listed those. And then she said she added another stage and she called that plotting. And that's when she started plotting. What can we do? Understanding that this race was coming up, right? In Georgia, how critical it was. She had a 10-year plan on how to turn Georgia blue. And so I think come on. I mean, she is then the epitome of what it means to have strength, courage, and wisdom, doing this work, not in the in crowd, right? Not in the midst of that which was abundant in terms of access to resources, in terms of access to support, and going up against this system that's in place that she was battling. And I think to see what she done, to lose, but to come back, right? And it's that whole meme of, they stole the state of Georgia from her in the governor's election. She came back and snatched it in this recent election. I think just her life really is a demonstration of what it means when we understand where we're going, direction we're going in, and we stick to that. And then we understand that we do this work not to be public facing, right? We do this work not because it's popular. We do this work because we really believe that we can make a difference, and that we have to deal with the broken social structures in this nation. And that does not happen overnight. That requires us to put in some blood, sweat, and tears. That requires us to make sure that we are prepared to be in for the marathon, because it's not a sprint. And sometimes it's not pretty work, and it's not popular work. Fanny Lou Hamer endured a beating that was almost unto death, but that did not stop her. So I think we also have to see that it's not always, pretty. And so we have to be fully committed and bought into that which we feel the journey is calling us to do, and doing that in community with other people. And I think that's the other thing I like about both of these ladies. They really understood what Dr. Stacey Thompson would call traditional communalism, right? They understood that it's about the entire community being made whole, that no one is excluded. It was it's more of a radical, inclusive way of doing the work that we do. So, and you said center Black women's voices. So that is a way, that traditional communalism, that womanist tenet, is what it means to center the voice of Black women, the ways in which Black women love other women and other men in various ways, the ways in which Black women make sure that everyone in community is well taken care of, whoever they are, but not at her expense. Right. So I also want to say that just to women who are doing this work of justice, we can oftentimes go, and we feel we have to keep pushing even at our own expense. So I always tell people I'm very good at self-care. I'm very good at stepping away from all the work, because this type of work never stops, right? When you think you have a break, something breaks out, right? And we're trying to respond. So it never stops. And so I always encourage women who really find themselves really in the work of doing this type of justice work in the NAACP chapter, where you're constantly responding to issues, that it's always important to take a step back and make sure you engage in forms of self-care. But I think that's another important thing. I think both of them tell us, and I also think they let us know that it's so important to be radically subjective, right? That we need to fully understand who we are, understand our identity, so much so that it allows us to see when systems are working in ways that seek to hinder and harm us and not help us. You're able to see what you do deserve and what you do not deserve when you're fully clear about who you are, which also leads us to make sure that we practice redemptive self-love. Because even in this work, and again, you asked me to talk about Black women, we can talk about the ways in which when Black women do step forward, how they can be attacked in the media, right? I could talk about Patrisse Cullors, one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter. That's why she wrote her book, When They Call You a Terrorist, right? So now they want to call her terrorist because she dares to speak truth to power in a way that she does not back down. And we can call the role, right, of Black women who dared to be fully who they were and love themselves, regardless of how people treated them, what people said to them, or what people did to them. And so I think these women really remind us of that in this moment during International Women's History Month, and particularly women who understood and understand what it means to really fully be engaged in this work of justice, and what it really calls us to do, and how we are to show up in this work in ways that we make sure we stay whole in the process, while also being radically inclusive and not excluding anyone from the journey and from the work, but making sure that we do not put ourselves at risk for someone else, that we need to be made whole in this process, and how we stay in this journey for the long haul and not for a sprint. So I think that's what I want to share as it relates to really centering the lived experiences and the voice of Black women who really, I think, have done their part to move us further down the road as we seek to be spaces and places where we really can become that beloved community in a sense that is still something we're striving for. And I think that they certainly represent the best of what that is. And obviously we can name so many more, even locally. We could talk about the women, but I wanted to lift those two women up. And the two texts, I think, are books that we can look to and read that can help us along our individual journeys and our collective journeys, and your work you're doing there in North Texas. I'm sure it's very much needed. I used to live in Louisville a long time ago. So I'm slightly familiar with the church. I had some coworkers who attend this. I would love to hear more about what Westside is doing in terms of the justice work there. I'm very encouraged to hear that. I'm excited to hear that. So I'd like to hear more about that as well. You're on mute. We can't.
Okay, I'm sorry. Y'all forgive me. Thank you so much, Pastor Ayers. What a wealth of information and gift that you are to so many of us. We really, really appreciate you sharing. And if you have time, I would like to open the floor for questions. If anyone has any questions or comments for our speaker on this evening.
I was just wondering where Fanny Lou Hamer, what area was she from, or what state?
Yeah, so she was from Rueville, Mississippi. Rueville, I believe is the spelling.
Okay.
I'm from Mississippi, so when you
wow,
that,
okay, yes, so you know well.
Yeah, we heard a lot about her.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I didn't have a question, but I want to thank you so much. This is actually my first meeting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, but no, this was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. We've been going through a lot of focus on international women history I work for IBM. And so, but you have this is really great. I was fiercely writing down both of the books. So I'm definitely going to add them to my list, and sharing about the president, of Tanzania, was it? Yeah, that's amazing. So I'll follow up on that. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Any more questions? And thank you so much for tuning in with us, Mrs. Hill. And thank you for your question as well, Drew. Any other questions or comments? Y'all are muted. So I would like to ask, while in the meanwhile, in light of us now having an African-American woman, a female vice president, and in light of all of the work and evidence of her hard work in Georgia by Stacey Abrams, and with so many other things that are going on, do you feel that the headway that they've made, everything that they've done, do you feel like it's really going, after our vice president's term is complete, do you think it's going to really usher in more involvement and appreciation and just more advancement for women in general, not only from a political standpoint, but of course, we've talked about even the religious stage where women just haven't had that space. And so, and not in all denominations. So do you feel that it's just temporary, or do you feel like the advancements that have been currently that we've witnessed, that it will have a long-term impact? And not only so, will there be laws? Because again, with all that you shared and all that we know that exists, we have disparities as far as wages, promotions, and just so many things where women are still oppressed today. So do you feel those things are going to impact the overall picture?
That's a loaded question. You had a lot in there. But this is what I
Take
would,
whatever you want.
okay. But the gist of it, what I hear you asking is, do we think with people like a Stacey Abrams and like Kamala Harris, will we really see real advancements for women, right? This is what I would say. I think we have to understand that the country itself, that we are rooted in patriarchy, right? This is a very patriarchal society and it's very hierarchy, right? So I think you have to understand that we're still dealing with a system. And so what you see with these women, they have broken through systems. Like, it's almost like, Tupac, a rose that grew out of concrete, right? So the fact that they're in these positions and doing this amazing work has not deconstructed this patriarchal system that does not allow women equal footing, right? We still have an over-under understanding that men are on top, women are on the bottom, right? So it's systematic. So we have to be bold enough and brave enough to begin to dismantle that system then, that continue, because how is it possible that we still have a pay wage gap, right? And so I think we have to answer your question, I think until we do that, until we really continue to chip away, dismantle, and deconstruct that system and build one that's more just and equal, where we see each other as complements and not as competition, right? That there's no over under, right? That we are side by side. And that's systematic, right? That's not going to happen with the election of a female as a vice president, no more than we thought, people called it post-racial when President Obama was elected. And most of us knew that was not the case, because it's systematic, right? You have to deal with these systems that are undergirded and upheld by white supremacy and patriarchy, which is the ideology, right? That somehow, in terms of white supremacy, the ideology that one race is superior to the other, right? And in terms of patriarchy, then it has more to do then with women, like this system of saying that women are less than, not equal to, and it's this over under way of viewing relationships and viewing how we order society. And those are long standing, deeply rooted in American social construction. So that has to be deconstructed completely for us to say, but I think obviously, we are advancing, right? But we have a long way to go. And so we have to, not just men, right? I always tell people when they say, Danielle, you always talking about men when you say, we got to deal with patriarchy and sexism and misogyny. It's men. And guess what? Women too have internalized that, right? Because you hear women say things like, that's not a job for a woman. Right? I've heard people tell me that she should not be vice president because a woman could not handle that position. So this is an ideology. It is also so deeply embedded, right? Because this is, for some of us, this is all we've known, right? In our homes, in our churches, right? You saw the PBS special with Henry Louis Gates, it was a whole section on women who preach without sanctuary. They did church without sanctuary when the pastors and the preachers in denominations would not license and ordain them, right? But they felt that they knew God had called them. Therefore, they became itinerant preachers. So Join the Truth is an example of that, right? And the list goes on. So yes, to answer your question, all of that answers it, but this is something more systematic and deeply rooted that we have to be intentional about deconstructing and then reconstructing something that is certainly more along the lines of what the divine had in mind in terms of us being complements and not competitors with one another. So that's the short answer to that.
Anybody else? Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I think she's exactly right. It's a battle for hearts and minds. What Kamala means, it moves the needle. What Stacey Abrams done, it moves the needle. Some people get to see a new value, but how far does it move it? You really can't tell. It's an ongoing battle. Like she said, you have to break down the system. And, it's both men and it's women. There's women who say, no, a woman can't lead the country. They're against, the whole idea of it as well as men. So, until everyone comes to that realization or you have a majority, move in that direction, you're not going to see substantial change. So you just have to keep plugging away at it. You have to keep working. You have to keep pushing. You have to, continue what we do, to talk to people and enlighten them and, bring it, up, and have these discussions, because that's the only way it's going to change.
Thank you so much, Deacon Grassley. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any other comments or questions?
I'll make a comment. I don't know if anyone else has seen this show. It's on Prime right now, and it's called Mrs. America. And it is about this woman named Phyllis Schlafly, who started grassroots organizing, and she basically, killed the Equal Rights Amendment for women. And it's just awful. I mean, the one thing that you can get out of that show is that grassroots organizing works. And I'm literally thinking of going back and watching that show, to try to learn some pointers, because she started, from nothing. And one thing I do think about Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris is that when you have women who step up to the plate, they're brave enough to go out there and say, I want to be a leader. And they're good leaders. And that gives the courage to other women to say, I want to be a leader too, here like Crystal Bates and Reverend Ayers. And they say, I want to be a leader. And then they are able to get more people involved. And I think the only way we're going to change the system is to have a lot of volunteers. And I think that's one of the best things about these women who got the courage to not only lead, but to say, I want to lead, and they write these books and stuff, and they get the word out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Crystal, I just wanted to have one comment. I know as a father and have some daughters that are very successful, but I encourage them to be all that God created them to be. A few minutes ago, we talked about moving the needle. I think the needle is moved. We just don't have processes in place to measure, how the needle is actually moving. I have a daughter that's in the United States Senate, and she worked diligently on the bill, that Emergency Act bill that was passed, the 1.9 trillion. She played an important part on working on that bill. But that needle is actually moving. We just don't see it because we don't have processes in place to measure what's going on. But I know that it's moving because I was determined to make a change for my girls, to let them know that whatever they wanted to accomplish, whatever they wanted to be, they could do that, even if it was being the president of the United States. And so I tried to embed that within them while they were growing up, so no one could change their mindset. So regardless of what they encountered over the time period, no one could change that mindset. Even the one that has her PhD and just doing miraculous things, you can't sway her either way. And she works across the aisle with Republicans, and she's a Democrat. She works across the aisle with Republicans, and she has the confidence within herself that regardless of what task is put in front of her, she can accomplish it. So I just, that needle is moving. I just wish we could have processes in place to show other girls, young ladies, African-American young ladies, that you can be this. You can be whatever you set your mind to be. That's my comment on that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marshall. Thank you so much. Anybody else? If no one else, I want to ask in closing, before you leave, Pastor Ayers, if you would like to share anything about any justice work that you're doing locally or beyond, or any information about your book that you'd like to share, whichever one, you can pick both or either one. I know that you were very, very instrumental. I know many of you probably followed the issue with Shingle Mountain, which was it was environmental justice injustice in the southern sector of Dallas. And Pastor Ayers, along with Dr. Haynes and Friendship West and other community leaders played, I don't know if other community leaders, but they played a huge role in seeing that justice was served, because there were so many people that were being impacted by health issues from Shingle Mountain that existed. And I know in our community and in a lot of communities, we talk about social justice, we talk about economic equity, but we're slowly paying attention to environmental injustices, which truly impact us quite a bit. Look at what happened in Detroit, Michigan with the water issue there. So I know that was one issue, particularly recently, that Pastor Ayers was very instrumental in. If you'd like to share about any other issues that you've been working on or about your book in closing, we'd love it.
Sure. Thank you for that. So yeah, I think it's so important when we think about the environmental justice movement, because it is this notion that Black folks don't do climate change and environmental justice, right? But the reality is, if historically, if you just because I'm a big proponent of understanding the history, because it better helps you understand where you're going. We have had and have a relationship with the land. We have always had a different relationship with ecology, right? Even from times of enslavement. That's not new for us. Of course, now there's language to it, right? In terms of climate change. Because I can tell you this, when I went to Madrid last year, the United Nations had a conference in Madrid around climate change. And that was probably the first time I've ever been in an international space where it was predominantly Black faces, right? And so for me, what that said was that we clearly understand that we don't pollute the most, but we're impacted the most, right? And so here in Dallas with Shingle Mountain, and that fight is not even over, right? Because now you have to deal with zoning, because now that we've moved the shingles, now they're trying to put a concrete batch plant in. Right? So it's an ongoing struggle that we have to look. And again, this is what I mean by when you talk about doing social justice work, you have to know the difference between that and charity and acts of compassion. See, right? So just about getting to that root cause, we have to change the zoning. If the zoning doesn't change, another type of Shingle Mountain can come up again, right? So just is about getting to that root cause, so it's not a repetitive action. And so Marsha Jackson, who was the very much outspoken resident, who really, led this charge, and many of us just supported her and undergirded her in this movement. So that's still going. We have not completed that work. We have to do the zoning. And we're trying to get the city to pass a neighborhood plan that turns that land back to what it was before the toxic waste, which was green space. They like a park. They would like perhaps do a garden, a community garden. So we have to now advocate for that as well. So the environmental justice work is something that I'm still working through with a number of people, not just me, but a lot of folks. And of course, Austin is hot right now, as you know. 1,001 bills are going through committees this week, and we're just trying to keep up with particularly all the voter suppression bills, right, that are being heard this week. SB 7 is set to be heard on Friday. As you know, is a very comprehensive bill with a lot in it that's not good for us. And so, just trying to follow all of the bills that are going through both chambers, right? So we can then understand how we need to mobilize, right? And make sure that our elected officials vote the right way when they come up for a vote, if they make it out committee, and preparing for Dallas elections. We have local elections coming up. And how do we keep people focused on that? I know we love presidential and midterm, but I always tell people, when you have a pothole and something goes wrong, you're not going to call Joe or Kamala, right? You got to call downtown. So we're trying to, make sure we keep people understand that every election matters. Even if it's an election for dog catcher, you need to vote, right? So it's about how we're trying to work on that right now. And then we're working on, which I hope you all will join us, and I'm sure Krista will let you all know we do this. We're also going to do something to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre around May 31st through June 2nd. And so those are the most immediate things. We're doing the environmental justice piece, and we're doing this whole piece around Austin, the legislative session, and the upcoming local elections here in the city of Dallas is what we have in the most immediate future.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, if that no other questions or comments, you all, let's give Pastor Ayers a hand. And thank you so much for joining and sharing with us. And know that you're always welcome to come back and share with us in the future. And know that we love you.
Thank you. Love you too. Thank you so much. I wish you all well in your endeavors. I'm super proud of you all. It's amazing work you're doing. I look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. So at this time, if we could have, let me see if I can share my screen. Jackie is going to share with us. Is going to share with us about the upcoming elections. Uh-oh. Oh, you're muted. And can you all see the election information?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, hello, everyone. I am Jackie Shaw, and I am the Social Justice Minister Lead at Westside Baptist Church. As we have been mentioned through this presentation, the different elections that are coming up, the local election is coming up, and that's something that our social justice team and our Black Women Community Power of Denton County, which is Crystal is a part of that as well. And we are really doing some things and getting out and pushing behind our candidates. One of the things that are true to our heart is our African-American children, our children of color. And we finally have two qualified, strong African-American women candidates that are running for LISD School Board, Louisville Independent School Board. So we are really pushing and getting people out to vote. As you know, people do not come out and vote and support local elections. Only 10% of cities come out and support the local election. So it is our desire to get as many people out in the community. I think last year, for Louisville election for mayor, there was 2,200 people that came out to vote for that election, and the mayor won his seat on 2,000 votes. So we have to make a difference and really push to get our citizens out. LISD School District, we're working really hard because it covers 7 cities. And so we're out in those cities this weekend doing lit drop. And we would love for whoever wants to come, even if you don't live in the city, if you want to come help with us, it's no contact, do lit drop. And it's the candidates, we're focused on the school board candidates, but any candidates that are in those cities are more than welcome to bring their literature. We have literature for the candidates. We do have 2 African-American candidates, strong candidates for the city of Louisville. But Penny Mallett is running for the city of Louisville City Council, place 3, and Delia Parker Mims is running for mayor. So 2 strong African-American women running in those races as well. So if you guys can come out and help us, and our election for Denton County is March 19th through the 27th. And early voting day, that's early voting, I'm sorry. And election day is Saturday, May 1st. Crystal has been gracious to put all the counties up and how to go to the website and click on them. So you would find more information about your own election. And for Denton County, you would go to dentonvote.com and find your polling place. And you can also look up your ballot, and in all these cities, you can look up your ballot, your polling place, and also look at your look at all your candidates that are going. There's should be a website on each one of these as well. So with that being said, thank you so much, Crystal, for having me. And I've learned a lot tonight, and it's always good to learn more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jackie. We appreciate all that you do. Thank you for sharing that information at the last moment. Jackie is such a blessing to us. Always. So thank you. She's my right hand. So I appreciate you so much for all that you do. And also she mentioned our Black Women Power group. Sister Miss Jocelyn McMurray is on the call too. She's a part as well. So I love being able to share space and serve the community with these two women. Also, if we have any elected officials on the call or any candidates, I'll allow you this time to say hello. I see Dr. Monique on the Dr. Thompson on the phone, on the call in the meeting tonight, and she's in the Little Elm area, and I definitely want to give her that space to share. I think city council member. I know she's an elected official, so I'm gonna let you say hello to everybody. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry I'm late. Tuesday's my late day. I'm a psychotherapist for real. Like that's how I feed my family. So I have clients late on Tuesdays. I apologize for the late arrival, but it's so lovely to see everybody. I am Little Elm ISD's first Black woman on the school board. And I just was seated in December. I won 11 out of 14 precincts. We set a record, and I'm very happy about that. I met Ms. Shaw somewhere along the way in that process. I want to tell her, appreciate your prayers. You cannot know how deeply they were felt. And the whole campaign was just one long testimony, one thing after another, testimony after testimony after testimony. I know that right now we're hopefully about to elect our first Black mayor here in Little Elm, Curtis Cornelius. Yes, he's a dear friend. The irony is that he's a dear friend. We're both from Arkansas. He went to UAPB. I did not know him then, but I also went to UAPB my freshman year, and I'm definitely 100% supporting his campaign. But the other ironic part is my daughter is one of his campaign managers. Her name is Tamiya Thompson, and she was my primary go-to campaign manager for that young vote. She really. That's a different world from where I am. I love young people, but they live in a different world. And she was able to kind of help us kind of keep pace with that. And she's helping him kind of keep pace with that. She held our only Black Lives Matter rally here in Little Elm. Curtis helped her get that set up. And then last year she did, I want to say 4 voter registrations here in Little Elm proper. So that's our family is here. We're here to serve. And I'm very excited. We do need all of us. I heard that number, and I've been looking at the rosters. We've got to get those numbers April 19th. Even for my election, it was the early voting was when it was won. It was over the minute they counted the early votes. It's always been the early votes. I looked back in the records for Little Elm, which I know we didn't count it for the past 5 to 6 election cycles. It's been the early vote every single time. And I don't know if you guys know that Curtis made a run for mayor several years ago. The person he lost to is the current mayor whose term has expired. And although he has kind of symbolically passed the mantle on to Curtis on the one hand, but we have a nonpartisan city council, but they are all Republicans, except for Curtis. And then on the school board, same thing. It's a nonpartisan school board, but everybody is Republican except now for me, including our Black male representative on the school board. He is a Republican. And we just have, the ideology doesn't matter so much to me when it comes to school board business, but it does kind of influence, I would say, decision making. And I respect everybody's position. I just want the best for the kids. And I think we may have some hope there. I'm not going anywhere. So in a couple of years, I'll be running for re-election. I know Curtis plans to run for re-election until it just runs out, but there's no term limits on the school board. We really need those women, Paige Dixon, and we need everybody to win. And I don't know, prayer did help, but strategy was great. And anyone who's running, if you're on the call and you need any tips, this was my first run. But we learned a lot. I did a lot of research to find evidence-based strategic ways to win that election, because you can't, if every Black and little M voted, I don't know that I would have won. You have to have everybody supporting you and figure out a way to get everybody support. And I found some tricks. If you are on the call, and I share freely with everybody, everything I learned.
That's beautiful.
Know better, do better, don't recreate the wheel. Everything I learned. Feel free to reach out to me. Definitely feel free to reach out. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. And you and Mr. Marshall need to connect, because I think he has Arkansas background roots as well. And then he's was a long time resident, but now a long time business owner in Louisville. But I think his backyard is in Little Am now. Okay. So yes, so you all have a lot of things in common. So yes. So thank you so much. Anybody have any questions or comments? Because I don't want to hold us up. I do have one other thing that I would like to share.
Crystal, I have a real quick comment.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't realize that you can do mail-in voting for local elections. And so in the Louisville ISD, if you know, I think it's good to spread the word that you can call and get a ballot mailed to you for mail-in voting. And a lot of people don't realize that. I campaigned several years ago for Karanda Timish, and then it was a big deal to get people represented on the East Side. And at that time, I taught in LISD, and my grandkids went to school on the East Side. And one of the things I realized is just talking to people about, like our two candidates now, just talking to people about, you know, we have an opportunity to make some inroads, to make change, to represent diversity. Right. It really helps. It really does. And getting to the audience of some of the young voters, the same thing, but just giving them all the options. I've been doing a lot of phone calling, letting people know, but I just think, like I said, and I think we broke the barrier by 300 votes that year. Karanda won by 300 votes. And again, it was less than 4,000 people that showed up, but that was more than the year before. So I think it's just a matter of, you know, word of mouth and putting that out there, and being a product of LISD. Diversity is very much needed on that school.
That is so needed. And for Louisville, we have 25 low performing schools for Louisville LISD. And 20 of those schools are in Louisville. 4 of those schools are in the Colony, and 1 is in Carrollton. So we really do need that representation to get out there. And as I said, we're going to be canvassing those areas this weekend hard, and getting people out to vote, because it's really hard for the Colony, because they don't have a city race at this time. So our only candidates are the school board race. So we have reached out to Friendship Baptist Church for Paige and Sheila to go speak there and hopefully get that congregation, because that's the largest African-American church, is Friendship in the Colony, and get those people out. And I know Dr. Thomas, they have a lot of candidates. I mean, they have a lot of members that are from Little Am. So that may be a good thing for Curtis as well.
Yeah, we have about 200 here in Little Am. But I want to encourage, we're all, I think, most of us are on Facebook.
Yes.
And during the election, because I'm a member of Friendship.
Okay.
So we did a voter registration drive there, and did experience some reluctance with actually, you know, speaking and that kind of thing. But the strategy I used to kind of work around that was to connect with people who were members online.
Yes.
And kind of create opportunities to interact with me through virtual meet and greets. And that worked well. I did several virtual meet and greets, and just kind of thinking about your influencers. Like, it's fairly, you know, easy to look at your mothers of the church, people who are influencers, and make sure that they have engaged and met and asked for their vote. ask for their influence, invite them to the virtual meet and greets. So that I would think might be a strategy to possibly use, especially since friendship, our church congregation is not our, we're meeting in person, kind of. So I think
still
that,
social distancing.
yes, exactly. Well, I mean, lots of steps there. So I think that may also be a barrier as well. But my workaround, because I was right in the middle of it, like last year, I met with my pastor just to kind of, is protocol, let him know I was running and everything. But
Right.
I also, to share the strategy I used, I went to every church that I could before COVID had hit and met with those pastors in person. Prayed with them, with me, and just kind of made my rounds that way. And if people are running to, like, they can't get that formal invitation to come speak for the congregation, I met one-on-one in their church offices just to let them meet me, feel comfortable with me. My strategy there was we meet each other and there's kindness, and
Right.
that way I could at least expect that you will have kindness in your reference to me to others without, it doesn't seem unkind, but for you to say you don't know a candidate and you're a church leader actually is pulling that vote away from their candidate, whether
Right.
you say you're endorsing them or not. But if you say, oh yeah, I met her,
Yes.
she seems like a nice person,
Yes.
even that pulls the vote
Right.
towards you. So and it was very, very, very sweet to have some of them, when I did cross their paths after the election, for them to, very politely and gently and silent, look, let me know one-on-one, I'm glad you won. That
Yes.
that meant everything. And I'm following up with them now because I will need their support next time. So my strategy was long-term. I won't just need your support
Right.
this election. I'm gonna need it next time too. So we may as well meet each other now. That works. So if they're trying to reach out, especially the friendship, Pastor Trotter, I would say try to just get a one-on-one meeting with him.
Yeah. Well, I've made contact and been talking with Miss Rosa Bailey, which she says she's you guys' media person.
Yeah, so his secretary is how you set up a meeting with him. So I'll email you her email address.
Well,
Okay, perfect. And then we're also setting up greeting stations for all the candidates that want to have the help. So I reached out to Curtis for Little M for him to have greeters, because that's very important as well for early voting. As people are coming in, they don't know who they're coming in to vote for. But if you got someone saying, hey, these are the two best candidates, here you go.
Very true.
So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Crystal.
You're good.
I have one more recommendation for Jackie, if it's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Community One has a lot of Louisville ISD people that go to those churches that could influence voting. Pastor Conway and Jada Edwards, they've got like 3 locations now.
What did you say?
Community One.
Oh,
The one.
One Community?
One Community, yes.
One Community?
Yeah,
Okay, yes,
LaShawn's a member there, LaShawn Bing, but they have a lot of people that are Louisville ISD. They have children and Louisville ISD families that could make a huge impact.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Well, we'll be reaching out to every church there is to reach out to, no matter what language they speak.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Just a couple of last things. We're going to actually finish before 7:15 tonight. I just wanted to share a couple of announcements. We still are in need of a couple of places for leadership roles. So I really, 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 really need names of people who are actually going to do work, not just hold a title, because it is demanding and it is a lot just one or two people. So if you are available, or if you know someone else that you would like to recommend, please contact that person and discuss it with them and make sure they have time to commit to the community and to this branch. Send an email to dfwmetro2020@gmail.com or contact me. You all have my phone number. Also, Sister Jackie did a marvelous job in sharing with us about our May elections. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you so much again, Sister Jackie. And then also, if you all saw that amazing newsletter that our head chief of communications did, Ms. Drew Murray, the information for you to opt in for our communications, or either visit DFW Metro NAACP.org to opt in for our communication, so you'll know all about everything that we're doing and about our meetings and get the login information, all that good stuff. Again, that's DFW Metro NAACP.org in order to opt in for communications. Again, we're always looking for Black History Moment presenters. Normally, we open all of our meetings the first 5 minutes with a Black History Moment, and everybody has been so wonderful and sharing. Everybody's just been on board to make sure we have that covered. So I appreciate everybody who has volunteered and who will in the future. And everything worked out today because we didn't have our Black History Moment, but we had Sister Jackie to share some very important election information so we can stay within our time frame to make sure I get everybody off in time. And so don't forget, we're going to patronize our Black Business Fridays. Take a picture, do a video, post the information on our DFW Metro NAACP Facebook page so we can try to help promote Black businesses in the area and beyond. Even if you don't go in that day, still share information about any Black businesses that you want to promote for that particular day on Friday or any day of the week, okay? So let's make sure we don't forget to hashtag Black Business Fridays, hashtag DFW Metro NAACP. Also, if you have announcements, since we got this fabulous newsletter and I don't have to stress myself and pull my little hair out anymore. If you have announcements, please get that to us ASAP. I'm not guaranteeing that it will be in the announcements because we do have to vet some things and see what we can put in and what we can't. So don't be upset if your announcement doesn't make the cut. But if you have important information that pertains to our community or important information that we need to get out and disseminate, please email that information to dfwmetro2020@gmail.com and our communications team will make sure to lay eyes on it and handle it as such. Also, get involved with BWCP, Black Women Community Power, which again, Sister Jackie, Sister Jocelyn, and myself and others are a part of. They are doing some amazing work. And so to get involved, please take down, Jackie dropped it in the chat. So take down that information because they do have activities going on this weekend, and there are other ways that you can get involved. So definitely connect. We support, the NAACP supports that effort because what Westside is doing, what Black Women Community Power doing, and what the DFW Metro NAACP, we are all on the same path and have the same goals in mind and the same effort. So definitely we want to support that effort and ask you all to get in and get involved. And I did not put, there's still time. You have 2 years to be certified as a BDR, a volunteer deputy registrar. That allows you to register people to vote. So if you have not done that, please consider doing that. Even if you miss out for this particular election, we got 2 years here and we need you on board, okay? Anybody else have any comments or questions or concerns? Okay. Well, I'm not going to keep you all any longer. We got off before 7:15 and we got a lot covered. And again, thank each and every one of you for tuning in. And next month, spread the word, bring somebody along, and know that I love each and every one of you all. Pastor Deacon Grassley, can you close us out with a quick prayer? I forgot to open with prayer. If you don't mind closing us out. And if anybody has vaccination, registration information or anything, please share any information you get, even if you don't get it in the newsletter. definitely share the information on our Facebook group page. We have really, people have been a little more involved with our Facebook group page. People are actually looking and engaging. So definitely you don't have to call me, send it to me. Y'all save me one thing to do. Go ahead and just drop it on the page yourself. Just help yourself. Okay. And any questions or comments, DFW Metro 2020. I think I said that wrong earlier. DFW Metro 2020 at gmail.com. So just send me an email or contact me. Thank you, Deacon Grassley.
All righty then, let us pray. Eternal and all-wise God, it's just once and again, Lord, we thank you for another day and another opportunity to call on your name. We thank you for your grace and we thank you for your mercy. Thank you, Lord, for this time we have spent together speaking about all the issues in our communities that concern us, Lord. Thank you for our guest speaker, Minister Ayers today, Lord, and her talk on the women in history, Lord, and all that these women have done for us, oh God. Just continue to open our eyes, Lord, to the wonderful resources you have put at our disposal, oh God, and let us be appreciative of these women and their efforts on our behalf. Thank you for our leadership with Minister Bates, oh God, and continue to bless her and keep her ever in your loving care. Bless her for her faithful service to this ministry and this organization, oh God. Thank you for everyone who came online today and participated. We ask that you would bless those who weren't able to join us today and just continue to keep us on the path, Lord, working to do better in our community and to make it something that you would be pleased with. Now, Father, we just ask that you would dismiss us from this place, but never from your presence. It's these and all blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen, amen, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Deacon Grassley. And again, thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. You all have a blessed evening.
All right. Take care.